We begin as always by preparing the body. So establishing a good posture, keeping the back nice and straight, and at the same time allow the entire body to become completely relaxed, completely at ease. Softening and relaxing all the muscles in the face. And relaxing more deeply with each out-breath. Allowing the breathing to flow naturally and effortlessly. And setting the mind in a state of ease and relaxation. Simply allowing it to come to rest in the present moment. And simply becoming aware of the rhythm of the breath. Allowing the eyes to be at least partially open, resting your gaze in the space in front of you, keeping the eyes soft and relaxed. And then simply release all appearances, allowing the mind to come to rest. Not doing anything at all. Simply being present, knowing that you're aware. Simply resting in awareness. Does the awareness you're resting in have a location? Don't try to intellectually answer this, just look. Is awareness inside the body? Is awareness inside the head? Is awareness outside the body? Just look. Does awareness have any physical characteristics, such as a particular color or shape? How big is awareness? Is there anything outside of awareness? And then release all investigation and allow the mind to come to rest. Resting in that open, spacious stillness of awareness. We'll return to that practice a little bit more tomorrow. And so this is sort of a more classic approach to doing this Vipassana practice in the oral Mahamudra tradition. So let's go back to the text. So remember, this is main path of the victors. Text written by Panchen Losang Chögyal Gyaltsen, who's part of the Geluk school of Tibetan Buddhism, but there's a lineage of Mahamudra practice coming down from Lama Tsongkhapa through to Panchen Losang Chögyal Gyaltsen. And Lama Tsongkhapa received teachings from the Kagyu tradition on Mahamudra and then synthesized that with his own profound understanding of emptiness, and so hence we have this lineage here. And that's what we're looking at. And we saw that in Mahamudra practice, in the text it says it can either be Sutra or Tantra Mahamudra. And then we saw that some commentators add a third level called Essence Mahamudra. And so we see that these are levels of practice. And that this text, of course, is mainly describing, of course, that first level of Sutra Mahamudra. Last year we had a large section of the text on practicing shamatha, particularly using the mind as the object, because Mahamudra is about nature of mind practice. And then now here, what we're looking at today and tomorrow is the Vipassana part of Sutra Mahamudra, how to come to realise the ultimate nature of the mind based on that shamatha practice. And we saw here in the Vipassana section of the text there's two outlines. The first one, which was page 7, was giving us a little bit of a flavour for how the ultimate nature of the mind, the emptiness of mind, is introduced in the oral Mahamudra tradition in the Kagyu school of Tibetan Buddhism. And now we're looking at the second outline, which is now a classic presentation of emptiness, the emptiness of the mind that those oral instructions are leading us towards. And this presentation here is a very clear, methodical presentation coming down from Lama Tsongkhapa of how to establish this view of emptiness and how to gain a correct understanding of emptiness, and then how to meditate on that. And so we're sort of in page 8, part way down. And so where we left off, there's a paragraph starting, although for such a selflessness. So we'll continue on from there. Although for such a selflessness, remember selflessness here is equivalent to emptiness. There is no division into coarse and subtle by way of entity. There are two types by way of a division into person and phenomenon. So therefore, here what it's saying is that there's no division of emptiness in terms of a coarse emptiness and a subtle emptiness, but there is a division in terms of person and phenomena. And what that division is phenomena here is everything other than person. And I think the reason they make this division is that here in the classic approach to this practice, we begin by focusing on the person, because that's where we start to go wrong. We start to grasp onto an independent me and thereby grasp onto an independent world. So it's very much recommended, and we'll see that coming up shortly in the text, that we begin our emptiness investigation on me, the person. Then we can expand out to other phenomena. So that's why we have this, often you'll see these two types of selfnesses of person, selfnesses of phenomena, or emptiness of person, emptiness of phenomena, to really highlight that start person and then go on to other things like body, mind, and other phenomena. And here he's quoting from Chandrakirti, a great, I think, 5th, 6th century Indian master, who generally, certainly in the Geluk school of Tibetan Buddhism, when we study about emptiness, we often study his text on emptiness. And he's quoting here, he says, in order to thoroughly liberate migrators, this selflessness was taught to be of two types by way of a division into person and phenomena. Again, to really highlight, we start with person and then move on to other things in our Vipassana practice. And in fact, we see that in the next sentence. It says, although in the scriptures along with their commentaries, the selflessness of phenomena is determined first, when meditating it is necessary to first meditate on selflessness of person. And so we see that, again, particularly in Chandrakirti's text, is that when the view of emptiness is being logically established in the text, they will use a physical phenomena to do that. In fact, in Chandrakirti's text, they use the example of a chariot or a cart to establish emptiness. And in the text you say, well, here's a cart, but can you find the cart there somewhere? And you pull off a wheel and you say, is that a cart? And pull off another bit and say, that is a cart. So you pull it all apart and you see that, well, there's no cart there to be found. And in that way we can establish the view of emptiness. But then when we come to meditation, it's recommended we first investigate me, the person. there seems to be this independent me here. Can we find this independent me that seems to be here? And we'll shortly look at how we can do that. That's coming up on the next page in the text. But first, a few things to clarify before we get to that. So if we continue on here, again, it's quoting this sutra, King of Concentration Sutra. It says, just as you discriminate the self, likewise that understanding is to be applied to all. So again, we investigate the self, the me in meditation, come to this experience that there's no independent me here, and then we apply that to everything else. The nature of all those phenomena is utterly pure like space, therefore by one all are known, therefore by one all are seen. Therefore that means by one, by coming to realise emptiness of person, then we can come to realise emptiness of everything else as well. And then it goes on, it says, with respect to meditating on selflessness of person, initially it is necessary to identify the object of negation, that which is to be negated. And he's quoting from Shantideva's classic text, Bodhisattva Charyavatara, which says, without contacting the thing that was imputed, you will not apprehend that thing's non-existence. So, as we're going to see, this is really the most important point in the whole emptiness meditation. This is what's called identifying object of negation. And we'll talk about that also a little bit more later, but here, what we're saying is that we're grasping onto now this independent me. There seems to be an independent me here. We're holding on to that. There is an independent me here. And in this emptiness meditation, Vipassana practice, we're going to look for that me. Is there really an independent me there or not? So if we're going to look for it, we better have a clear picture of what it looks like. Otherwise, the search is not going to go very well. Like the example, if you're going to look for a particular person in a crowded room, but you don't have a clear picture of what that person looks like, you can search all day and never come to a conclusion. Is that person in the room or not? Might be them, not sure, maybe yes, maybe no, will never be conclusive. So similarly here, if we don't have a clear picture of how we see ourselves existing, then when we do the search, it'll be inconclusive. And that's what we see here in the next paragraph. It says, and why it's called the object of negation, because that's the thing we're trying to negate. We're trying to negate that there is an independent me here. It says, if the object of negation is not identified, it is like shooting an arrow without seeing the target and leading an army without identifying the enemy. So again, it's not going to go very well if we don't have a clear picture of this me that seems to be here that we're going to look for. And here the next point is important. It says, also with respect to identifying the object of negation, if there is an over-pervasion, then you will fall to the extreme of nihilism. And if there is an under-pervasion, since the subtlemost object of negation is not refuted, you will fall to the extreme of eternalism. So I think we need to unpack that a little bit. And we can start by talking about what's called the two extremes. The two extremes are existence and non-existence. And here we are currently stuck here in this extreme of existence, meaning we're grasping onto everything existing independently. And so what this is talking about, this over-pervasion and under-pervasion, is that we exist, of course. There's no Buddhist tradition that says we don't exist. Because if we don't exist, we couldn't question that. So the question is not whether or not we exist. The question is, how do we exist? And now what we are doing is we are laying on top of reality something that's not there. So that's what this existence is. It's sometimes called a superimposition. So what we are doing here, and that's where we're stuck now, is there's a me here, but on top of the me that is here that exists, we're laying on top of that the idea of an independent me, an inherently existent me. And so what we want to do in this practice is we want to strip that away. We want to strip away what we've put on top of reality that's not there. But if we don't strip away that correctly, one of two things will happen. Either we won't strip away enough and we're still stuck here. That's what's called under-pervasion. Or we'll strip away too much and we'll actually strip away the me that it's actually here, and that's over-pervasion, and we'll end up here in non-existence. That's nihilism, of course. So the key is to strip away exactly what we've put on top of reality that doesn't exist without stripping away reality itself. So the saying is, of course, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So what we're doing here using that analogy is we need to throw out all the bathwater without throwing out the baby. So under-pervasion is we don't throw enough bathwater out, we've still got bathwater. Over-pervasion is we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and we end up with nothing. So that's what we're doing here, is that we want to find the middle way here between these two extremes. If we don't throw out enough, we're still stuck here. If we throw out too much, we end up over here. And that is the challenge in this practice. And that's what's called the middle way. So this extreme of non-existence is sometimes called deprecation. Deprecation meaning we're denying what's actually existing. Whereas here, superimposition is we're laying something on top of reality that's not there. And this one, we're throwing away reality. We're not acknowledging reality that's actually there. Question?
Yeah, I'm just trying to, for myself, and I think maybe for others, make it more accessible or concrete. Like the me that I see in the mirror, the me that feels pain or pleasure, the me that is perceived by my environment, that's all dependently arising?
Correct. And that is there. But what do we mean by dependently arising is the